So before I start writing a novel, I need what I would call my hook. I need a way into a story, an interesting kind of what if. What if, like in No Time for Goodbye, what if a girl woke up and her entire family was gone and 25 years go by and she doesn't know what happened to them? So you start with a strong what if. And once I have that, then I'll spend, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe longer, depending, making notes thinking, okay, what set of circumstances brought that what if into play? What made it happen? And once I know that, then I'll start sort of thinking of the sort of in broad terms of what's going to happen and the end point. So I sort of have it a bit worked out, but I know a lot of writers will kind of work out every stage of the book all the way through. They know what's going to happen. I can't see the opportunities that exist in the book until I get into it. So I'll start, I know my starting point. I probably kind of in my head know the first 50 to 100 pages, and I know where I want to end up. But then once I get into what I call the mushy middle of a novel, I think, well, wait a minute, I have this kind of thread that I'm going to follow through to the end, but I can divert and do this, and I can divert and I can do that. And so I suddenly see these other opportunities of side stories and little twists and so forth. But I still come back to that center point and I'm heading towards the end. So the idea for No Time for Goodbye, I just woke up one morning at 5 o'clock. I just woke up and it was there. I think it may have been inspired. There had been a case in the news in Canada about a young girl who had been abducted from her house, and when the family woke up in the morning, they discovered she was gone. And when I woke up at 5 in the morning, I thought, well, what if you took that situation and you turned it upside down? And the only one left in the house is the 14-year-old girl, and everyone else is gone. So that was the beginning of that whole process. And not only did I not know that there'd be a sequel, I mean, I hadn't even written the first book yet. I had no idea that it was going to be a massive hit. So I wrote that novel, and then some 6 or more years later, an editor actually in New York had said that they thought it would be great if there were a follow-up to that book. So I decided I thought it would be fun to come back to them, because a lot of times in thrillers, people go through a horrendous set of circumstances, and then by the end it's like, oh, but we're all fine now. And I think what they went through was really traumatic, and they probably might never really get over it. What would be the long-term impact? And so I thought, what if I revisited this family 7 years later to see how they're managing and how they're doing with their own daughter, who's now the same age that the main character in No Time for Goodbye was when she lost her family. And also give me a chance to further explore 2 minor characters from the first novel, Vince and Jane, who a lot of people really liked those 2 characters. And I thought, what if I built a second story that very much was about them? And that was really the beginning. But when I wrote the first one, I had no plan at all to follow it up with another book. Well, I have a few other favorite writers, and I guess if I were to think of a couple of my 2 favorite books of all time, one of them would probably be The Chill by Ross Macdonald, which was written in the mid-60s. Ross Macdonald wrote a series of novels about a detective named Lou Archer, and that's probably one of the best in that series. That and the first one I ever read, which made a huge impact on me, was The Goodbye Look by Ross Macdonald. But more recently, I think the novel that just most blew me away in the last 10 or 12 years that I read was Philip Roth's American Pastoral. I just am so glad you don't have to be that good to get published. Well, I am tackling another genre. I've written it'll come out a year from now. I've written a novel for young readers, 9 to sort of 13. I call that, the elevator pitch for that one is think The Bourne Identity, but it's a dog. And so that's coming. But I haven't ever wanted to try to write something under another name. It would be hard to find another name that was weirder than my own, so that's why I do that. But I've had an idea for a sort of a horror novel that would not be as typical of the sort of thing that I do. But I think, in fact, I'm going to write that book, but adapt it so it's not a horror novel, but it's more like a thriller. So I'll just keep writing under this name. I don't read a lot of horror or supernatural. I'm a huge Stephen King fan, so I'll just read anything he does. I like, I can enjoy a scary movie, but I don't read a lot of that kind of fiction. But it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it. Well, my books sell well in a lot of places, but they sell the very best here in the UK. So it's real, and because I live across the ocean and I'm in Canada, and you can only sort of connect through Facebook and so with people, but this is a chance to actually meet face to face with people who are enjoying the books. So it's really great to come here and have that opportunity, to see people face to face, be able to sign their books for them. So it's a lot of fun.